Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, helping higher education marketing leaders share knowledge about learning, strategies, and tactics that are relevant today. See what you can learn today by listening to one of our episodes.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, hosted by Concept 3D. If you like our content, please follow and subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, and Google. My name is Shiro Hattori, and I'll be your host today. And I'm really excited to talk about something. I think this is the first time we've covered this specifically, so really excited to talk about the new age of alumni engagement marketing strategy, why volunteer recruiting works. So for the topic, I'm thrilled to have Priya Vin join us. She is the Director of Volunteer Engagement at Lafayette College. Priya, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for inviting me, Shiro. I'm happy to be here.
It's great to have you. I do ask all my guests this, so as an icebreaker, please tell us what you love about higher ed, Priya.
Yeah, sure. So, doing my research, I knew that you were going to ask me that question, so I had to think about what I wanted to say. And it's funny, I graduating from college and from graduate school, I didn't anticipate going into higher ed. First part of my career was all in nonprofits. And what I'll go into a little bit later, I worked with volunteers the first half of my career. So there was no plan to go into higher ed, but I did make that pivot into higher ed, and it was just so much fun. So it was just amazing. I think it's really the sense of community. We're all like on the same academic calendar for the whole year in terms of how we plan things. So the beginning of the school year is just so exciting, especially for the staff and for the students. And then you go through the whole year, and then you end with graduation, commencement, and it's just wonderful how we can end the whole year and we try to accomplish the things that we accomplish. So it's really like a sense of community, and it's such a great cadence, like you're aligning it with the students. And it just, even the first place where I worked, I just love my colleagues so much, and I love the volunteers, and I just kept going. There was no real reason why I just wanted to go and hire it, is that I just had an opportunity to get in, and then I stayed in, and I'm still very excited to be part of higher ed.
That's amazing. I'm assuming this is the first time I've gotten seasonality response. I'm a seasoned person as well. I like seasonality. I don't want to live somewhere that stays the same temperature all year long. So, that was an interesting response. I liked it. I'm sure in Pennsylvania you get that as well, right? That's great. Awesome. Well, I know you told us a little bit about your background already, but can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing today?
Sure. So I received my graduate degree in social service administration. So that was more of the administrative track of working in nonprofits. So like I said before, for about 10 years, I worked in nonprofits running programs, but always incorporated volunteers into my work. It was always a part of it. I've worked with older adults. I worked with those who had heart attacks or strokes, those who had developmental disabilities, like a wide variety of folks. And at one point, I made a pivot towards alumni volunteers about over 10 years ago. And I used that opportunity to go into higher ed. And that's when I was actually in an alumni office. And for the last 10, 11 years, I've worked in alumni engagement, and I've worked in various roles. So I've done the regional work, I've worked with affinities, I've worked with young alumni, old alumni, put reunion together, worked on homecoming. So anything you can imagine, I've worked on that. So I feel like I have a good, robust experience about it. And now my role, I'm working on developing a good infrastructure on how we manage our volunteers at my institution.
Amazing. Well, let's jump in then. So, can you tell me a little bit from your lens, right? What is the current state of alumni landscape? So, is alumni engagement down, do you think, regionally, nationally? I know we were just at a conference with other volunteer engagement folks. What's the chatter that you're hearing?
So I've worked at three institutions, and I would say they're more regionally based. And so I'll talk from a regionalist perspective. I don't think alumni engagement is necessarily down, but it's definitely harder to achieve. And I think that was the same sense I was getting at that conference that you're mentioning. And shout out to that conference. It was held by Academic Impressions, and they did a great job of bringing us together, all these alumni engagement professionals. And I think the biggest thing that has changed is the fact that we had COVID. That changed the way we look at things, how we recruit people, how do we get people back on campus, how do we get people involved with the school. And so COVID did was force people to think about how to spend their time. It forced people to reprioritize the things that are in their life at the time of where they are in their life cycle, that is. So, for example, like parents or those alumni who are in their 30s and 40s might prioritize their home life, so maybe not as engaged with the school as much as they used to be. Or you have folks that are retired, and because now they have time, they're not at work anymore, they might get re-engaged with the school, but how do we meaningfully engage them? So I noticed with COVID that after COVID, attendance to some of our events, they they were harder to get to those same numbers as pre-COVID. I'll just say it like that. People would come, but it would take a lot more effort to get them back to campus or get them engaged. Meaning that we had to really up the ante in what are we offering folks. It couldn't just be the same old stuff. Come to campus, have a beer with someone. That wasn't going to work. We had to be more innovative in our strategies. Like maybe we need to get higher level speakers. Maybe we need to get more professionally focused type events or put those type of events on. Perhaps we need to offer areas where we can connect alumni to students, because that has been really the biggest thing that I've heard from alumni from all the institutions, from any like peer school, is that alumni want to contribute to like the student life, to the student experience in general.
That's super interesting. Do you think that in this information age that like what do you think the impact of social media apps like Facebook and Instagram have on this too? Do you think they play a factor?
Oh, most definitely. And I think that when first social media came out in the early 2000s, it was just taking a while for people to catch on. And as it slowly ramped up, people were using social media as a way to connect with their classmates. So prior to the early 2000s, institutions would hold homecoming, would hold reunion, hold maybe very signature events where people would come back to campus because there was no other way to get in connection with their classmates. Now, with the advent of the social media, they can be more connected with their classmates. They make their own groups. They're talking to each other on LinkedIn if they're seeing they're working at the same company. They don't need the school to be the intermediary at this point. And so how do we make those events more appealing, or how do we get them back on campus when they have all these other ways to get together? And so, yeah, it most definitely has impacted the way alumni engagement works.
Got it. Yeah, and I think in a previous call, like you mentioned your opinion, right? That alumni engagement and events they have to move beyond just like being social gathering events. They have to have another element, like you just said, connecting with current students. Like you said, that was a big thing that alumni, wanted to do in volunteer work. So I really liked what you said there, because I agree. Like as someone who uses Instagram, like the value I get from it, like is like I can see what people are up to, like without having to do anything.
Right.
And so it's great. It's great for that, but I can see that like if I were to connect with someone, it has to be something else. It needs a plus alpha on top of the social gathering. So I think you make a great point there. So let's talk about
if I could,
go
just
ahead.
going back to that, I just wanted to say, and then you throw in COVID with that, where people, again, they're reprioritizing their time. And so if we're just talking about alumni engagement in general, they're not going to, like, if they live across the country, what's going to make them come back to the East Coast, right? And so, especially if they're already in touch with their friends in these, like, I guess if you want to call them like underground networks, what's going to get them back onto campus? right? Or what's going to get them to come back to the school to participate as a speaker, or what's going to get them to come back to welcome students or something like that. So it makes it a little bit harder. And so we have, obviously we have to be a little bit more creative.
Yeah. And like super broadly, I have my own idea for an answer for this, but like what's the value of getting people re-engaged with Lafayette College? Like whether it's bringing them back from the West Coast, like you mentioned, or just having them re-engage with some of your campaigns, what's the value in that for the institution?
I mean, I was thinking long and hard about this, like what is the reason? Why do we want volunteers? And they're really like the quiet, the sleeper force behind the whole institution, because they add so much value to the institution. And we're not even talking about giving money at this point. I'm just talking just that their time that they're giving. Um, they can add value to the student experience. You have parents who are more particular about where they're going to spend their tuition dollars. And so students really appreciate, and the parents really appreciate, okay, they met this alum who is making so much money working at this like Fortune 500 company. So my child can do that too. They want to be able to see what's the value of their degree. Because I mean, it's an investment into their future, right? And so they want to see that after they graduate, they can get not just a regular job, but a job that's going to really propel them to whatever, their aspirations are. If it's even like medical school, law school, what have you, anything like that. And so when you have volunteers interacting with students and specifically, like I guess in like an admissions capacity or in a regional capacity where they're welcoming students to campus or to start their first year, they really want to see what is that value and like what is the experience like, and did you have a good experience on campus? Like I think not that I'm in the student life capacity or area, but I know the students really want to see what's that student life experience like, and are they gonna have a good time while they're on campus, while they're studying and they're learning and things like that. So they want to hear, especially from recent grads, like how were you able to navigate this major, and how are you able to participate in these types of sports or other like clubs and things like that. So they really want to hear, the students definitely want to hear from the alumni, and the alumni people love talking about their experiences. They want other people to have that same, especially the ones who have such a good experience. They want to be able to impart that experience onto others and say, yes, you need to come here. Like, this is so much fun. You're going to have a great education, great social life, and then you're going to do great in your professional life as well. So yeah, going back to your question, so from that perspective, like they add value there. We have faculty who invite alumni to campus to speak, and that's like such a valuable experience for both ends as well. You have alumni they'll end up feeling good about participating and being involved with their school, and then you have students who are like, again, oh, they know a lot about this specific major. Like, this is great, and they often end up being a resource to students. So just a couple of examples of how they're kind of like underneath everything, but they're a great resource.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm here really, what's the marketing channel that works the best in any industry, higher ed, Amazon, whatever? It's word of mouth, right? And so alumni engagement is an opportunity to, I feel like, increase word of mouth, that social proof that people are looking for. And like you can take the step further where like alumni can even help, you know, not just with the initial part, but like also help a student through their school experience. So it's great. Let's talk about volunteer engagement as a whole. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And this was interesting for me. I went to big D1 school, C Boulder, or University of Colorado Boulder. I get calls to donate, not so often because I think I told them not to come anymore. But I've never gotten an email saying, "Hey, Shiro, do you want to volunteer for C Boulder?" So can you tell me a little bit more about volunteer engagement? Is this a growing channel to help try and engage with more alumni?
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned about like the calls about giving and stuff, and that's what that we hear a lot. Like that alumni don't want to just hear about They don't want to just get calls from the institution when it's time to give. Not everyone has the ability to give, and we should be able to give options on how they can participate and how they can give back to the school with their time. So going back to the time aspect, everyone's time is valuable. It's the one thing you can never get back, right? And so how can we make the most use, and how can we offer something that they can just give their time? And so what I've been working on is not only we have opportunities where you're on committees and maybe they're like over 1 to 3 years commitment, but also micro volunteering experiences where you can just participate once, like perhaps you're hosting a welcome event or hosting some type of telecast, or you're just popping into a professor's class talking for like 20 minutes, so that people have a wide range of ways that they can give back. And so I'm always cognizant of leading when I'm talking to potential volunteers that, I know your time is valuable, so we will make this work with the time that you can give us. And I think also showing that appreciation and showing that I'm aware that your time is valuable, people are more, I've noticed, are more likely to engage and participate in these volunteer activities. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're asking for money, you're asking for their service in a different way, that also meaningful for them besides just money or funding, right? And so I think there's there's an opportunity to increase engagement in that outreach, I think, as initial versus like, hey, do you want to donate to our alumni foundation? Or hey, we have some amazing volunteer opportunities coming up. Would you be interested? Like, I might click that email more, just read it even, versus like asking for money immediately up front. And I think like in our previous call, you mentioned like how you can really build on that. You said micro volunteer, right? Like once someone has micro volunteered, like that person is sitting in a much closer place with your institution or college than they were before that, right? So whether that's like for donating down the road, or you mentioned something around building committees around that as well, there's just more opportunities to engage with that person after that initial outreach. So I really like that as well.
Can I add another thing?
Yeah, of course, go ahead,
Okay.
it's your time.
Well, the other thing, and I think it was something that was brought at that conference that we were mentioning about, is that because we were brainstorming ways to recruit people, besides saying, hey, we have this opportunity available, you're going to spend X amount of time, this is what you're going to do. What's really in it for them? And there was thoughts about making some opportunities that would be beneficial to an actual alumni volunteer, like something that they can add on their resume, so that it shows that they participate on boards, because that's something that folks, as they get higher up in their own ladder, might want to be on some type of board and to be part of committees and things like that. That's certainly something they can add onto their resume. Or if they're speaking in front of students or what have you, some of these things can be put on someone's resume, which I think sometimes people are looking for that. So that's just, how do we incentivize, how do we get people excited? And I think that's one way, as people are more focused on like professional development, because the social stuff, they can handle that for the most part, right? So the professional stuff we can help them with, and this is just one way that we thought of that is a good way to get them in.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm always thinking of like, how do we help the person that we're marketing to while they also help us, like have it be both ways instead of just one. And yeah, I think people do want to give back in their lives, not just their money, right? And so I think such a good opportunity. Can you tell me a little bit more about, I guess I have two questions, I'll ask them one at a time. What are some volunteer engagement examples that have been working really well with your institutions or other institutions that you've heard of? Like what types of events or what types of activities? You mentioned the student peer one was a good one, but do you have like any examples of that?
Well, I mean, in my institution, we have a really good alumni admissions representative program, and I think a lot of schools have that. Where you have they can go to career fairs at local high schools in their region. And the reason why I think this particular program is a very good program is that, you have high school fairs all over the country. So you don't necessarily need to come back to where the school is located to participate. You can participate in your town. The admissions department, they will send you the information, like which fairs are happening, what do you need to do, here are the talking points, and you can just stay in the town that you're in and still help out. Also, you have, again, at other institutions, you have the same thing where you can interview potential prospective students. That's always a good way to get involved, because you don't have to necessarily travel back to the institution where you came from. Something that's been great with us is also through the Career Center. We have a lot of alumni who offer internships, externships, and that's how we get a lot of folks involved, especially being like in the tri-state area. There's a lot of opportunity. We're close to New York City, close to Philadelphia. So there's a lot of people all around. And so those are also very great opportunities. And I think just because the way we're geographically placed, it gives us a little bit of leverage over maybe some other schools that maybe are not as close to big metropolitan areas. So that has worked well as well.
That's fantastic. The other question I had was ROI. Like, how do you measure your programs? Like, this is a tricky one, but like, how do you think about measuring the data or the metrics? Are there any associated with volunteer engagement programs?
So I think because you're cutting out, so you're asking about how do I measure volunteerism?
Yeah, like what data do you track to report on, or that you track of yourself?
Okay, so we're in the beginning stages of it, and
Yeah.
I've been talking
What should
internally
you?
about
What
this.
should you? Yeah. What should you
Yeah.
measure?
Yeah. So, it's right now we're just tracking when folks actually volunteer into our database, what program they volunteered for, and the length of time. And, throughout the whole fiscal year, we track that data, and at the end we can see who has done what, and then we make sure that's like a unique number, so we duplicate all the data, and then we can get an idea of how many people volunteered throughout the year. And so it's not as easy as it might sound, because it's not just our department that has volunteers. We have volunteers that are working with departments all across campus. So having those great relationships with internal colleagues or external partners on campus, like that's very important. So, I'm having to work with our career center, admissions, our entrepreneurial center. I mean, there's various areas where everyone's involved in making sure that the data they give us is correct. So, but we have a ways to go of how to do better and track our volunteer data. But that's just how it is right now.
The starting point. Well, great. Like, I mean, there's probably schools who aren't even where you're at today. Just as the last part of the call, like, can we talk about, like, all right, let's say I'm a small regional school like you, and I'm a director of alumni engagement, and I'm interested in starting a volunteer engagement program. Like, can you tell me a little bit more about how we can get started? Just like the first couple steps.
The first couple of steps I would say is draft some type of vision statement, mission statement, something that can that you can lead with, and put some thought into it. Like, why are we doing this? What is the outcome? Besides, increasing your affinity with the institution, right? And the next piece, which I think is very important, is figuring out what are your volunteer opportunities, and thinking about what are the position descriptions for all of these opportunities, what's actually involved, which partners are you working with, how do we ensure that those opportunities are conducted in a professional manner, meaning that someone's not just emailing and then no one gets back to them. You want to make sure all your ducks are in a row before you launch any type of program. And obviously, once you get volunteers, you want to have your protocol set basically for how do you recognize volunteers, how do you train them, how do you give them orientation. That's also very important, because once you sign people up, they don't want to just be left hanging. They want to be given direction. These are the things that you need to know, etc. And then how do we track that data? How do we evaluate that we're doing a good job, like surveys, things like that? And then how do we recognize volunteers? That's really the volunteer engagement cycle.
That's awesome. I think I'm just going to take what you just said the last minute and create a playbook, because
Okay.
that's a great way to get started. That's amazing. Well, there you have it. I think we're just at about time here. Priya, I was wondering where our listeners can connect with you. If you have anything else you want to share as well.
They can find me, I guess, on LinkedIn.
Cool. Priya Vin. Should you come up right away? Let me search it. I guess I'm already connected with you, but yeah, go ahead and connect with Priya on LinkedIn. It was so great to have you. Thank you so much for joining the podcast. This is a topic I haven't covered, so love covering new topics and learning. So I appreciate you joining.
Thank you so much, Hero. Had a great time.